So far, 2021 Season 1 has been one of dominance for the former ARC Menards driver in Connor Hall. He has led a majority of the season's laps. He's led a majority of the time overall. And when it comes to his pace, it's been difficult to keep up. The question's going to be, can anyone keep up with him at a very unique and difficult racetrack for the Cup cars? We're about to find out here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hello everyone and welcome to the virtual Worldwide Technology Raceway in Madison, Illinois for the 5th race of the 2021 Season 1 campaign for the Precision Racing League Cup Series. I'm Justin Prince. Along some of the booth tonight is Joseph Devon. Behind the scenes, our director Sean Ambrose, and he is using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. What's there to learn about Worldwide Technology Raceway? Let's take a look at our GSRC track guide to learn more.
Worldwide Technology Raceway, a speedway born out of the speedway boom of the 90s. More colloquially known as Gateway, the track sits in Madison, Illinois, just on the other side of the mighty Mississippi, from St. Louis and its famous arch. And like that arch, Gateway has become a passage to the western United States for many series calendars. The facility itself opened in 1967 for drag racing, but the changes started in the mid-90s when the land was raised and the rebuilding began. As part of the rebuilding, a 1.6-mile road course was built inside and using part of the 1.25-mile track we are here for today. Its egg-shaped and differing ends in both radius and banking is a challenge for anyone trying to set up a car here. Even though the banking itself isn't too different, 11 degrees in 1 and 2 and 9 degrees in 3 and 4, the radius of 3 and 4 is much wider, so you carry a lot of speed down that front straightaway, which has led to some drama and classic finishes over the years in iRacing and on the real-life track. IndyCar returned here in 2017 after 14 years away, and in a short amount of time has become a coveted spot on that schedule. The NASCAR trucks also make a regular trip here every single year. ARCA is more off and on, and we'll sometimes get some late model and super late model action here with more regional series. Now, with downtown St. Louis and the Gateway Arch as a backdrop, it's getting time to drop the green flag at Worldwide Technology Raceway.
That's a look at our GSRT track guide for Worldwide Technology Raceway. Now let's bring my broadcast partner for tonight, Joseph Devon. And Joseph, what are your expectations for these Cup cars here tonight? What's expected to be a unique type of track for these cars this evening?
Like you said, definitely a unique type of track. Almost egg-shaped, some people call it that. I think it looks more like a fat sausage. But it is still technically an oval despite the way it drives. You've got 9 degrees of banking in one corner, 11 degrees of banking in the other corner, only 1.25 miles around, and passing will definitely be at a premium tonight. It's very difficult, but with 19 of some of the finest iRacing drivers in the world, actually up to 20 now, we'll definitely see some action.
It's going to be interesting as well with some of the drivers struggling off turn 4 for tonight throughout tonight's practice session. The series is sponsored by SimMSA. SimMSA provides many consulting services from completely customizing simulators to managing teams, individual drivers, and managing complete events. SimMSA is working hard to bring communities, associations, organizations, companies, manufacturers, teams, and drivers together at one place to support and promote sim racing internationally, bridging virtual and real motorsports and providing understanding, a link, and a network between these two involving sim racers, real world drivers, teams, and crew members, managers, engineers, and of course, motorsports fans alike. This series also sponsored by Butt Kicker. Butt Kicker includes incredible products with immersion and realism brought to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Feel what you've been missing by going to thebuttkicker.com. This series also sponsored by NinjaTrader. Way to compete against the financial markets, supporting more than 60,000 users across the globe. NinjaTrader provides award-winning trading software and brokerage services. NinjaTrader is always free to use for advanced charting, backtesting, and trade simulation. Visit NinjaTrader.com to get started with risk-free trading simulator and start tracking your performance. Let's take a look at the performance for some of the drivers in the respective teams entering tonight, where Connor Hall, as talked about, has been dominant so far. 3 of the 4 victories so far have gone his direction, seeing him score an 11-point advantage over private label Team Hype's James O'Brien. International Racing's Joshua Daniels is third right now with 21 points back. Adam Zemke, Richard Regan Jr., your current top 5. Those points totals from private label Team Hype have seen their team, by the way, score a 34-point advantage over Winnebago Racing Black in the team standings. Carl Ramrod, SGE eSports, and Connor Hall eSports round out the top 5 in those standings so far. 3 of those victories going the way of Connor Hall eSports via Connor Hall. 1 victory scored by private label Team Hype. As drivers get ready to go for qualifying, let's take a look at the race details for tonight, Joseph, as these drivers get ready to go racing under the lights.
Indeed, this is round 5 of 10 in the PRL NASCAR Cup Series here at Gateway, or rather, Worldwide Technology Raceway Gateway to be more specific. We have 135 laps around this little track. It is an open setup, and there are no fast repairs, and there's a 24 incident limit. So you got to be careful of those walls. You can't be getting too many 2Xs or you will be out of here.
Be very careful indeed. Keep in mind as well the tire set limit 3 available in the pits, 4 total for these drivers tonight. Qualifying is underway around the racetrack, where right now conditions see 79 degrees Fahrenheit as the track temp, 77 is the air temp. Minimal wind, humidity at 58% for tonight. In sim days, April the 1st, 2021. For these competitors, as we follow on with Michael Witt, when it comes to driving a cup car here, what's that balance like as we see Witt record a 32.8 to start off his qualifying run?
You know, that's a very good question, and it's a question that I myself haven't found the answer to yet. This track is extremely tricky to get right, but it's just a matter of nailing the exit, especially on that fatter turn 1, and getting it as close to the bottom in turn 4 as you can without hitting that pesky little curb, because that will spin you, and that is not pleasant.
That's an understatement and a half today as we see the Wedgehammer Racing machine come across the stripe a little bit quicker the second time around. But Connor Hall, no surprise, up at the top of the board. He just scored a 32.2 to start off his runs in qualifying. He was also the quickest driver in practice. Bradley Hawley does top him. Hawley's had good qualifying pace throughout the entire campaign when you think about his PRL career.
It's always not a surprise to see Bradley Holly on top, as right now we're looking at Jose, the funky cold Medina, turning his way. I thought he was going to go with the pits. Looks like he missed the pits there.
He actually hit the wall, I think, at one point, as we've seen with the damage. And keep in mind, this track going to be very difficult to make sure drivers find that balance here, where, especially with their setups, where they find the mix of right speed and handling around this racetrack, especially with the more aggressive banking in 1 and 2 and the flatter 3 and 4.
Definitely a track that rewards a good handling car, a good setup car. As it is an open setup race, we're definitely going to see probably a decently long green flag run. We'll see later in the runs which drivers have managed to set up their cars well enough to keep going on a long run like that.
Keep in mind, as Mike Knight scores himself ninth for now, and as Colton Lane pulls into the pit lane, there are 2 drivers not allowed to qualify for tonight. Robert Bisson Jr., Richard Regan Jr. due to cause fault for incidents / yellows at Texas Motor Speedway, at the Legacy, Texas in particular. And that could be costly for them, with a big loss of track position for those respective competitors, as Charles Sumner comes across the stripe a little bit slower than his previous time.
Yeah, about Richard Regan Jr. and Robert Besaw Jr., the 2 juniors starting in the back of the pack. I don't honestly know what they're going to do. Are they going to go for an aggressive pit strategy to try and make their way through the field, or are they just going to try and hang on, avoid some accidents, and make their way up the field not artificially?
Have to see, as some of these drivers aren't getting additional practice laps in, such as Knight, as you can see. James O'Brien also, but in that grouping, scored 4th. Chad Brown scores himself 15th in qualifying. The drivers who do not record times, as mentioned, Bisson Jr., Regan Jr., not able to do so with incidents. Acosta, Ayland, and Patrick Cowgill. Everyone else has reported time for tonight's action. in what has been a massive difference times. Look at the separation among the top 16, 1.4 seconds.
Yeah, this is a track that separates the wheat from the chaff, setup-wise and driver-wise. So the best drivers, the best setups, there is quite a difference between that and some of the drivers who can't quite find their way around Gateway just yet.
Drivers are all set to go racing from Worldwide Technology Raceway. Again, just in the shadows of St. Louis, Missouri, in the Gateway to the west. Let's take a look at how they will drive for tonight's action and start off. Bradley Hawley starts the pole once again this season with a 32.1, followed by Connor Hall in his 32.215. Colton Lane, James O'Brien round out the top four, with Mark Kalin with an error-strong qualifying run in fifth. He's been strong with the short runs and some of the shorter tracks this season. Joshua Daniels starts in sixth, with Pat Harvey seventh, Brandon Walter, Adam Zemke, Baron Hilton, your top 10.
And down in 11th place on row 6, it is Mike Knight and Michael Witt, followed by Charles Sumner and Trent Dinkle. Chad Brown and Jose the Funky Cold Medina make up row 8. And then we're down to the drivers who didn't qualify, which are Abner Costa, Richard Regan Jr., and Robert Besaw Jr., as we mentioned before. Patrick Cowgill and Ken Ayland will start from 21st.
That rounds out your starting grid for tonight's action, as 21 drivers have made their way to tonight's circuit. Your expectations / keys to victory for tonight, Joseph, if you want to take the checker flag here.
Well, the keys to victory are probably going to be staying out of trouble, especially on lap 1. There's some tight corners, and when there's 21 cars on lap 1, there could very well be an accident. You want to avoid that. And then once we get on a long run, which is also a very real possibility, you want to make sure you're not ruining your tires too early. You want to have some good tire life at the end of a stint.
Who are some of your favorites overall then for tonight?
Well, obviously, Bradley Hawley has to be a favorite. Our pole sitter, Connor Hall, too, as he's been dominant throughout this season. But, you know, as usual, you can't really count anyone out. It could be a night for Mike Knight. It could be Richard Regan Jr. It could be anyone throughout the field.
Off and away we roll for tonight's action. Again, tonight's overall distance, 135 laps, 168.75 miles, 90 minutes overall, just in case on the clock. Drivers see 78 degrees the track temp, 76 the air temp, partly cloudy skies, 58% humidity for today's action. And under the lights, just past 8:30 in sim time on April 1st, 2021 for the in-sim date. Final thoughts before we take the green.
I was just going to say, there's definitely an April Fool's joke in there somewhere. We'll see if that comes into consideration before the end of the race. But honestly, I'm just excited to see this thing go ahead and see how these drivers take on this tricky track.
Of note, Abner Acosta has missed the start for tonight's action. He will likely have to start from the pit lane and/or could lose several laps. He did not record a time, remember, in qualifying at the number 5 machine. He's been a contender in some of these races. But we're just about all set to go. Bradley Hawley for Winnebago Racing in control of the field. Connor Hall on the outside. iRacing pace car is off. Green flags out. We're underway from Worldwide Technology Raceway. And a good launch for Connor Hall off the corner, already taking the race lead from Bradley Hawley. But everyone else trying to single file out very early in the first couple corners.
A bit of severe blinkage from Connor Hall makes it difficult to see him on track, but he is in the lead. The question is, will his internet take him out of the lead? That would be very unfortunate for a driver who has gotten a phenomenal start. One
drop available in this series, keep in mind, and he has been warned now by race control about the technical issue. So the 222 looking already settle on down. He led 111 laps at Texas last week. James O'Brien's already settled a third. Colton Lane shot with a 4th off the start. Daniels and Kalin, the top 6. Everyone else has calmed down for the most part. Keep an eye, though, on the 46 of Richard Regan Jr. from the back tonight. He's already up 3 spots in about 2 laps.
Richard Regan Jr. charging his way forward. Some of the other drivers who started back there with him, Mesaw, Cowgill, they seem to be just hanging out back there. But Richard Regan Jr. is slowly making his way forward up to 15th place from what, 20th, 18th on the grid.
Indeed. So Junior following soon as we take a look with Colton Lane. And how difficult is it to try and hit these lines properly without scrubbing a ton of speed, especially in 3 and 4, with the balance of needing to find that balance on the splitter?
It is very, very difficult, and you do have to take into consideration the tire life here. Maybe you don't need to push so hard right now to stay behind a guy, keep your tires fresh, and then as we get later into the stint, while they're sliding around, you can go skirt around the outside.
James O'Brien trying to be very careful of how he lays back here. Lane also being very patient. Keep in mind, you can see Kalen and just about everyone else electing just to go into a nice and calm rhythm so far. The main driver who's been pushing early on is Regan Jr., and he's already had about 0.4 of a second to fall off.
As we look at Richard Regan Jr. right now, there has been a change in the lead. Bradley Holly has just passed Connor Hall, who seems to be slowing down. Is he coming to the pits?
And that might be involved the technical problems potentially, letting by Bradley Hawley, and he's now starting to drop back. Keep in mind that Connor Hall usually, Joseph, saves a ton on the short run to pull away on the long run.
Looks like that is what he's doing. He did not come to the pits, but he's sitting about half a second behind Bradley Holly. The internet issues have seemed to have fixed themselves a little bit, but I don't want to jinx him. We'll see how he continues throughout the race.
Bradley Holly, a multiple-time PRL champion, now pulling off and away by more than a second. He was the pole sitter last week as well at Texas. Mark Kalen, meanwhile, diving his way to the inside in 1 and 2. You can tell just that bit of banking. You can get a better run if you clear by on the apex, but have the ability to defend if you hold said bottom on the corner exit, or hold top rather.
Mark Kalen is going to be quite close enough to make a move on the red 77 of Joshua Daniels this time. So we're just running single file still. Connor Hall has backed up the field from about 2nd to 7th, but still nobody seems to be able to make a move.
0.4 of a second off right now. In fact, as here comes Mark Kalen, Joshua Daniels driving right by the 60. And everyone else starting to outbounce on the 222 machine to try and pass by him towards his inside. James O'Brien, Joshua Daniels trying to go right against the rumble strips. Mark Kalen also in that same boat.
Fortune for Colton Lane, he lost something like 3 positions there in the space of 1 corner and half a backstretch, but he did not defend from Mark Kalen very aggressively, so he just seems also to be happy to just ride around, save some tires, and the race will come back to him.
And race control is now giving an additional warning to the 222 for technical issues. Right now, Kalen, though, wanting to make a pass as this is all going on underneath Joshua Daniels for 4th.
Tried this a couple laps ago. Will it work this time? He's not quite clear as Daniels and Kalen continue to be side by side, and Daniels seems to be bringing Colton Lane with him on the outside. Lane backs out of it, and they're back to single file.
It just seems, again, that difficulty to pass could be something that could frustrate a lot of drivers today. How do you find that balance of patience? Make sure you don't over push on that.
Well, eventually you will feel the effects of saving your tires, and you'll say to yourself, wow, why don't I do this all the time? And eventually you do learn to save your tires, because it is a very effective strategy. As further back in the pack, I'm seeing Richard Regan Jr. continue to force his way forward, making the move for 12th on Mike Knight right now.
Right behind all this, as you see Tonight you can see finding a new organization with the Smith logos, and that's an organization that's focusing on a lot of efforts for Road to Pro this year. That has opened up the door for Trent Dinkle to try and also make a move now on night. And it appears Connor Hall has now been relayed the message. He is now pulling off to the side and letting everyone go. The technical issues mean the end of the night likely for Connor Hall, the points leader, having to go off the pace with the issues.
Unfortunately, this is one of the things that comes with iRacing. Internet problems, problems. But then again, there are technical problems in real life that are out of the driver's control, so maybe it's more realistic than we thought.
Drop back to ninth. You can see Baron Hilton and Trent Dinkle still scrapping a little bit now as this is all going on. Hilton with the top line carrying a lot of momentum in recent weeks, had some success in the truck series. Him and his organization in rescue racing on that side recently as Dinkle sends it harder on the brakes.
The bottom line does seem to be working better through this last corner, but Baron Hilton is hanging on. They're side by side down the back stretch. Just further up, Richard Regan Jr. just passed his way into the top 10 as his charge continues. And it looks like Dinkle will be safe with the move, and the 3 of Robert Besaw Jr. is also going to get by Baron Hilton.
Triple Two is still running on the racetrack, it appears, at the moment. Regan Jr., though, is one of the quicker cars on the racetrack. The quickest overall is Bradley Hawley by a tenth or two per lap than the rest of the field. Joshua Daniels, meanwhile, has kept the pressure on James O'Brien as this is all going on. A little bit at least. Mark Halen also providing some pressure to the back of the 77.
These two, Kalen and Daniels, have been stuck together for pretty much the whole race. We sit here only on lap 15. Still plenty of race to go, but there's got to be some frustration setting in here. Just be stuck that close behind the guy, but still not able to make a move.
Off has already reached nearly a full second now for these drivers. Pit strategy could be very valuable as a result here if you want to try and make a pass or try and jump past somebody then.
Pit strategy is going to be very important with passing at a premium. You can make pass in pit road, it's just as valuable as pass on the track. So the drivers will have to start thinking about that very soon. When do you think we'll see our first pit stops? And will they take tires? They take fuel? They'll take both? What do you think?
You'd have to take both with the time, obviously. But it's just a matter of how it breaks down for some of these drivers expecting pit stops potentially at least around lap 50 for tonight's action. We'll have to see how it breaks down overall. How far some of these drivers are able to stretch it. Could be a tight window. Keep in mind it is low downforce too here tonight, not the high downforce package. So it's not like a lot of tracks where you have a lot of grip. This is the type of race where you have to have that balance of throttle control and find that balance as well for the grip to be able to make some moves.
And someone who lost some grip a couple laps ago, I believe it was on lap 12, Jose Medina had a little bit of a moment. He spun coming out of turn 4. He didn't hit the wall, but he is 13 seconds behind the next closest car.
Yeah, but he's already almost up for grabs to be lapped as a result. 30.6 seconds behind the leader. You can already see he's fallen off a ton in this race. Patrick Calgio is already 20 seconds back. The leader's Ellen's already 18 seconds back, and that was one of the main thought processes of with drivers being 1 second off, lap traffic could be a factor for the faster cars in the top 10 by lap 35.
Indeed, and with Bradley Hawley a second pretty much faster than Jose Medina, and a 31-second gap there, he'll be catching him momentarily.
Mark Halen still falling along. Losing a bit of touch now to the 77. This has been something that's popped up a little bit here and there for Halen, is the difficulty to save his tires on the long run, Joseph. He did it at the Rock, where he was fast on the short run for 15 laps, then dropped like a stone.
Reminds me of myself, honestly. Not that I would be up front in the first place, but saving tires is a craft that is very difficult to learn as we see him squiggling off the corner there.
Richard Regan Jr., by the way, is up to 8th spot now. Adam Zemke let him go last time by. Connor Hall 3 laps ago. He is now your biggest mover of the race, plus 10. The multiple-time series champion. He's very quick right now, catching up to his teammate, Brandon Walter.
He's running about the same pace or faster than Bradley Holly. So even from starting 18th, Richard Regan Jr. is definitely not out of consideration for this victory here. He's all over the back of Brandon Walter. He's got to run here. Will he be close enough to make a move into turn 3 and 4? I think he is going to go for it.
And his teammate does give him the space. Walter allowing him to drive by on the bottom side, so making a plus 11 now for the 46. He is the quickest driver by 0.2 of a second right now. Also been running on the average past 10 laps, 34 flats, compared to the 33.9s though for Bradley Holly on the stopwatch. Colton Lane having a strong run though tonight so far, keeping it inside the top 5 for the time being.
And someone who I don't think we've mentioned for the entirety of this broadcast is Pat Harvey in 6th place in the 67. He's all over the back of Colton Lane and Mark Halen. And he's got Richard Regan Jr. behind him. So he may be the center of attention in a couple seconds time, a couple laps time.
Pat Harvey, very quiet season so far. 3 top 10s so far in the campaign. Connor Hall Colton Lane, rather, I should say. 1 top 5, 2 top 10s so far. The drivers looking to gain some valuable points now to be able to move up, whether it's in the top 10 in the case of Harvey, top 15 in the case of Colton Lane at the moment, as Kalen has really dropped off the past couple laps now.
Coming across the line this time, the lap is 34.27. That is almost 1.5 seconds slower than his best lap in the race. Daniels hasn't been able to pull that far away, as I think Kalen was actually a little bit better off the corner than him. But both of them.
Oh, we have trouble for Baron Hilton. We talked about him in a battle a little while ago. He's now off the pace after I believe he may have smacked the wall hard coming off turn 2 and had to come to the pit lane. It's the 47, significant damage. Let's take a look. He had already crushed in the right front fender, crushes in the entire right side of the car coming off of turn 2. Take a look.
Everything looks normal as he's going through the corner, but as he exits, he just loses it a little bit, overcorrects over into the wall, and that's a kablanc, and another hit to the inside wall. A glancing blow. Shouldn't be too bad in terms of damage, but there was no caution, so he is going to be well behind the field.
All right, lost a couple laps. Look at all those scrapes. That's some of the worst I've seen on that type of race car. Keep in mind that Daniel still is trying to pull back away from the 62 as this goes on here. They will be reaching some traffic. Already Jose Medina has lost a lap, so that could pop up here.
Doesn't look like Bradley Holly lost too much time lapping Jose Medina. It seems like he was pretty nice about that. James O'Brien will be the next one to catch Medina.
Yeah. Bradley Holly nearly spun it off a turn 4 just a moment ago. He is looking like he's getting really loose now as this run progresses.
But really loose for Bradley Holly is still 0.2 faster than the car in second, which is scary for the rest of the field. But Bradley Holly will have to start thinking about pitting soon, I think.
We're still towards the middle of the run, keep in mind. Already fall off approaching 2 seconds. Last bobble came right about there, a little bit more safer on the corner exit compared to the last charge. Speaking of drivers charging through the field of note, Nissan Jr.'s up plus 10 now into 9th. That's the fastest car on the racetrack as he is catching up to Connor Hall right now by a few tenths a lap.
Just catching him here. Connor Hall just left our screens again. It's not great when you're trying to overtake a car if you don't know where they are. But Robert Beaslaw Jr. is being a little bit tentative and conservative behind here. I think he's just waiting for a mistake.
Well, the main thing is, though, when it comes to Connor Hall, and give him credit, he knows the situation, understands it. He has been letting cars go when they have a run. He did that with Regan Jr. Wouldn't be surprised to see it with Beaslaw Jr. here in a couple laps. So that's something to consider here in that mind. Again, it's an unfortunate situation, but there is a drop available each season for these competitors. Meanwhile, Brandon Walter's been reeled in by Adam Zemke and Trent Dinkle behind these respective competitors as well. See Zemke the closest out of that grouping. Dinkle within 1 second now of these cars. And Walter was one of the drivers who struggled the most in practice on turn 4 in the long run.
Some unfortunate news to reveal. Connor Hall has disconnected from the race along with Baron Hilton. So one of the favorites for the win is officially out of it, and Baron Hilton's day ends after a couple clunks before.
So 2 DNFs just like that. Hilton for that incident, Connor Hall for technical issues. That could have some ramifications for some of the standings, to say the very least, but opens up the door for the possibility of a new winner. Whether it be Holly, whether it be Regan Jr., or whether it be a second time for someone like James O'Brien is the question as he says hello to the wall. Some of these cars really getting tightly knit to that fence in some of these exits with how tightly wound up it seems they are in terms of their steering maybe.
Definitely. It was a little brush with the wall. It shouldn't be anything too bad from Zemke as he's still keeping Brandon Walter in his sight. The fight for P3 continues on. Joshua Daniels, Mark Kalin, we've seen them together for the entire race, but the train is continuing to grow.
Pat Harvey is hooked onto the back end of the 60 machine. Kalin losing a ton of time that time. About a couple tenths in 1 and 2 that time going up the banking. Keep in mind that several different organizations in today's action, Joseph, took part in the Daytona 24 in various different splits, whether it was the 8:30 p.m. split on the Friday night Eastern, or whether it was the 12 noon Eastern split on the Saturday. That fatigue could be starting to settle in for some of these drivers in the early going.
It's definitely a possibility as Colton Lane got very, very out of shape there. He slid it pretty much through the whole corner. Yesterday's race definitely took a lot out of these drivers, and there might honestly even be a little bit of an adjustment after going from a GT car or an LMP2 car back into a Cup car, but it looks like everyone has come back into their ability in driving a Cup car, so that shouldn't be too much of a problem.
Yeah.
As the train still continues to go one by one.
More so probably the muscles on the arms too, though, and some of the fatigue from running hours upon hours upon hours of stints. One of the organizations, keep in mind, that seen those drivers again are the private label Team Hype cars of note, which competed top split in that 8:30 p.m. Friday night action. Second overall, O'Brien and Regan Jr. both were behind the wheel for the respective splits in that race. That was in an LMP2. And second overall is where that organization finished in that one. Solid run overall, but again, some of that fatigue can stretch on in. Traffic is starting to cause chaos in that battle for third position on back. Jose Medina smacked the wall in front of Colton Lane, forcing a bit of a checkup effect.
After Mark Kalin got by Medina, he had a big old slide, as we're going to look at a replay of that incident.
Let's take a look. Medina's been struggling a ton around this track with the pace and with the damage, and that time just pushed hard into the wall, right just about into the 60, and that could have been even big. That could have been big if he went even a little bit higher. Could have been huge.
And I don't think the car Jose Medina was lapping would be very happy. It's never pleasant to get taken out by a lapped car. As Colton Lane says in the chat, like he frequently does, horrifying in all caps. That is a very good word to describe that incident with.
He isn't wrong. Lane doing a stellar job here, holding on to the top 5 for now. They are having another couple drivers, though, joining the train as Lane nearly says hello to the wall, half a lane up. Regan Jr. and Bisson Jr. are closing in a little bit by bit to these cars. Past 100 laps to go, and Regan Jr. still turning some of the quickest laps on the track by a couple 100s.
Tracking Richard Regan's movement up the field, 18th to 7th, that is 11 positions. That is more than half the field that he's passed, as he is trying to chase down Pat Harvey now for 6th. He's a little bit too far back to make a move, just like everyone is. Mark Kalin goes very, 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 very high. And here comes Colton Lane to make the move on Mark Kalin for 4th.
It's a battle that's been forming up for a good 20-30 laps. Lane, though, back single file, not able to make the pass. Once again, Kalin, though, on the defense. Lane's been sending it all the way up to the wall on some of these braking marks. That time nearly sent it to the back end of the Ford, as he loses nearly the back end tires.
Going up near the wall on the brakes, there has been working for him. We might have to christen that the Colton Lane if he's able to make it work for the rest of this race.
Very punny indeed. Now we're approaching that pit window in the next 10 plus laps or so estimated for these drivers. Tight for one stop potentially for some of these competitors. A lot of them stretching for the fuel as Kalin stretches it to the wall. Lane to the inside. Kalin lets him go. Kalin nearly smacks the wall as Pat Harvey to the inside.
Kalin has just been seemingly pushing it too hard into the corners, getting too late in the brakes, and he's just been flying towards the wall. I don't think Pat Harvey's going to have quite enough momentum on the bottom to get by him. Actually, as I say that, the pace of the two cars changed mid-corner, and Pat Harvey will have the preferred line here. But it doesn't look like he's quite able to make it just yet, as Richard Regan Jr. almost sends it into the back of Pat Harvey.
Bit of a checkup effect there as Kalin now gets the run and finally gets sent back single file. Junior, though, thinking about a move maybe to the outside. And he does poke to the outside of the 67. Regan Jr. now with the pinch. The SGE eSports machine, though, has the preferred line. Braking has been deeper, though, for the cars on the outside in these types of fights. You see why as Harvey gives it to him.
Richard Regan Jr. must have some kind of especially hard tires. This Colton Lane just lost it. He just pounded the inside wall.
No caution. We stay green for now as Lane now rolls it back onto the racetrack. So Colton Lane from the top 5 goes around down the back straightaway in turn 2. Regardless, the cars can always be a tricky one because of it being a tight exit. Drivers likely looping it around like this.
Very similar to what happened to Barrett Hilton. He lost it, and then he saved it, and then he lost it, and then he saved it, and then he lost it, and then it ended in the wall. A very unfortunate way for a strong race from Colton Lane to end.
I think that King of the Hill reference that was on his name tag fits properly to how he's probably reacting in the cockpit right now. Loses a ton of time. He's now in the pit lane with Chad Brown. Regan Jr. looking to pick up some spots meanwhile as a result of that for 4th.
No, it seems like just seconds ago, Richard Regan Jr. was at the back of the pack fighting for 16th, but now Mark Kalin goes up high again. Richard Regan Jr. sneaks down to the bottom, and suddenly Richard Regan Jr. is in view of the top 3.
Look easy with the pass, even a little bit, but Kalin not known for giving up quite too easily. Regan Jr., though, with the quicker pace, able to make the move. The downside again for tossing a caution flag at Texas for Regan Jr. is he may be the fastest car on the track. The problem is he's got to somehow close up 10 seconds over the course of 90 laps. That's easier said than done with Bradley Hawley still in a good clip as Chad Brown exits the pits in front of them. And take a look at the comparison. You can see the pace difference is balancing back towards Hawley's direction since the fight started to break out a little bit. In fact, he's been running 34.5s, Hawley has lately.
do have to consider, though, that Richard Regan Jr. this whole time's been making passes while Bradley Holly has been having clean track this whole time. So once Bradley Holly runs into traffic, or once Richard Regan Jr. gets a good, clean piece of track in front of him, we'll see the real difference between their two speeds, as we just saw Mark Kalin lose another spot, this time to Pat Harvey.
That's again a teammate to him as we look back at him as here comes the SGE eSports machine of Bisson Jr. He's been having a solid clip tonight. Similar pace, in fact, to Regan Jr. Similar situations as well as Kalin again defends on the high side.
The high side does seem to work for Kalin in that last corner, but through turn one, just every time, and he hit the wall that time.
He locked it up. Mark Kalin locked it up. Seen a puff of smoke from the right front tire, believe it was, that just sent him up into that wall. He's coming in. Let's take a look at the reason why, and he's been sending it very deep, the 62 has.
Indeed, it looks pretty normal going down the straight, but every single lap it seemed he would just go too deep into the corner, and this time the lockup prevented him from saving it, and that's a clonk into the wall. Unfortunate way for Mark Kalin's race to... Well, actually, no, his race didn't end. He did not come to the pits. We thought
he actually missed the pit lane. He actually missed the pit lane, too. On top of it. Right as we were showing that, he actually ran into the grass, so he comes down this time. And it's not an easy pit lane to enter. You can see why, especially under green. A lot of competitors on the service normally don't have to come down under green, to be frank, in some cases here.
Well, here he comes. I assume he'll get a new set of tires. He has been, dare I say, Kalin his tires. Been very, very hot, very, very worn.
A little bit too punny on that one as Pat Harvey in fifth. The teammates now trying to keep up with the 46.
I'm not sure they'll be able to. They're actually running a pretty similar pace, but Richard Regan Jr.'s charged through the field. Nobody seemed to have anything for him, as he's actually gone a little bit high into turn one, but that might just be to be able to diamond off the corner a little bit and get a good exit. Pat Harvey slides just a little bit. He defends from the three. This battle is between two cars with absolutely destroyed tires, and it might just come down to who makes more mistakes.
Balance down to 34.5 for the top runners, 34.7 for the drivers you're following along with. And when it comes to teammates such as this for fights like this, what's kind of your mindset as a driver? Do you prefer them to give you a good battle during a race if you have similar pace, or do you prefer them to, if you feel like you're getting held up, just quickly move on by, or rather let on by? How do you like to play it out if you're on team with teammates?
Well, since we're only 51 laps in, pretty much only a third of the way through this race, I would let a faster teammate by, not to hold him up. But if we're talking like lap 120 with 10, 15 laps to go, you're not getting left by. You can pass if you want to.
So depending on the situation.
Exactly, and I think that's the mindset that a lot of these drivers are taking. We saw Richard Regan Jr. get by, or I believe it was Regan, get by his teammate very easily. He was just let by, you know, you're faster than me, go ahead. I'll just run my own race, you run your own race, and maybe we'll meet each other a little bit later.
Right now, just 12 cars in the lead lap, by the way. The only drivers to pit so far at a different strategy call are Lane, Kalin, and Chad Brown. Everyone else has continued to push on forward here. Lane is running 33 threes on pressure tires at the moment. So he is looking like he's going for the two-stop to split it potentially at 40, around to about 80, and then to the end of the race, it looks like. Everyone else, such as these battles two-parted, are looking like they're going to try and stretch it.
Now we're looking at Walter and Dinkel. One of the closest battles on track is still continuing for 7th and 8th. Right now, I'm looking at Chad Brown, actually. The one driver you mentioned, he's the only driver who pitted, who didn't hit the wall and necessitate a pit stop. So he's on a real strategy here, but he is 2 laps down, so I'm not sure how well it's working for him.
Yeah, he's been struggling on those newer tires. He is running 34.9. He's slower than cars on new tires right now. Not the best of pace is for Chad Brown tonight. On the bright side, if you're a Trent Dingle fan, he is looking very stellar under the brakes here. One of his best races so far this season, so far.
Indeed, I think we might be able to christen him after this very, very good race. Dinkle, Little Star. He's having a great time tonight.
They are reaching Jose Medina as traffic as well, keep in mind. Falk is 4/10 bigger than some of the respective teammates and the race leaders at the moment as Dinkle nearly sends it to the back end of the 99. Robert Bisson Jr. also being let go now by Pat Harvey for 5th position, we are hearing. Or Colton Lane, rather, is being let go by Pat Harvey on those fresher tires we talked about. So a couple of different plays going on here as the drivers getting towards that mark where they'll have to come in.
This little battle here with Walter, Dinkle, Sumner further back. They're 20 seconds, 22 seconds behind Bradley Holly. So Bradley Holly might end up lapping his way past the top 7, maybe even up into the top 5 before too long.
Let's take a look at our race leader once more as the pace continues to stay at a consistent clip. Here's a reference mark for drivers following along. 65 laps was the longest Connor Hall, his competitor, up towards the front before technical issues had ran in practice. Looking like Hawley going right to that mark, which would be right about halfway.
Yep, right about halfway. Sounds like a plan. Those tires are going to be smoking. They're going to be practically on rims by the time we get that far into the race.
But he's just been dominant. Let's take a little bit of a ride with him for a little bit and just listen to some of these sounds on how he's being careful on the throttle and the steering motions. Take a listen.
Almost makes it look easy. A lap around Gateway like that, those tires, it's been 60 laps. But if you showed me that lap with no timing, no scoring, no graphic, no anything, I'd think it was a pole lap.
Michael Witt has blown a motor just now. That's going to be potentially a factor for these cars scrapping. You see that puff of smoke. Daniels, Regan Jr., and several others in this mix, including the fresh tires now in this. As there goes Kalen on the fresh tires, nearly into the 46. Daniels now gives up the bottom. This could open up the door for Regan Jr.
It could. This is Richard Regan Jr.'s chance at a podium as he has the momentum on Mark Kalen on the outside. But he may have Joshua Daniels to worry about on the top as they're side by side through turn 1, but Regan isn't able to stay alongside.
Again, that is a driver on fresh tires they are scrapping with still. Off and away goes the 62 and backs off as Regan Jr. makes the send on the 77 for 3rd.
Indeed, and 77 is gone. He's plummeting back to 5th place, and he might have Robert Bisson Jr. to worry about before too long.
Again, the 62 is not for position. Remember, not for position on 12-lap-old tires is Mark Kalen. The thing is, Mark Kalen's running 35-second lap times. I think he wanted to get out of there and not be a factor in the battle, possibly. Now he's starting to push. And now Regan Jr. lets him go.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a little bit of damage from that turn 1 wall hit that's preventing him from getting all the lap time he could be getting out of these new tires, but he is able to streak away from Richard Regan Jr., so they're clearly helping a little bit, and we'll see how this shakes out by the time we get to the end of this little strategy sequence.
Side by side, meanwhile, down the front straightaway, Walter and Dinkle. This is for 7th. And Dinkle's been trying this for a little while now. Trying to keep it to the inside. No. Walter able to squeeze once more and defend.
The outside line's really working in turn 1 for some drivers. Brandon Walter, very good on the outside there. And then through the brakes and turn 3 and 4, they're pretty even. So that's got to be frustrating for Dinkle to be faster at one singular portion of the track, and then he can't make the move anywhere else.
So how do you try and set it up then when knowing there's that frustration and knowing that that line has been working if you get to the outside in 1 and 2?
You just got to wait for a mistake. We've seen a lot of them, a lot of people sliding off the corner. Just wait for Brandon Walter to slide one time too many or not. He sends it to the bottom and turns 3 and 4, and he made that look easy.
Very easy indeed. Got a bit of a run, and I think Walter in some space for the set. Will Walter try and bounce back? No. Loses some momentum in fact. They are at that mark we talked about, 65 laps. Slowly approaching the halfway mark now for this run. Joshua Daniels is now in. The 77 coming down the lane. He'll open up the pit window for the leaders.
Watch Daniels come to his pit box. Try not to speed in pit lane. That would be awful, but pretty much the first competitive pit stop under green flag conditions that wasn't necessitated by a crash. Joshua Daniels inches his way down the pits, passing the crashed car over there, stopping in the 77 pit box, and he will take fuel and tires.
See how things go out with Trent Dinkle also coming in. The International Racing Machine. It's got good service. Mike Knight also expected to come in this time, as there goes Joshua Daniels. Overall, quick time, 14.8 seconds overall in the pit box for the 77.
A pretty good stop, but we'll see how well the undercut works here. I'm going to watch if he's going to come out into traffic here, because Bradley Holly still has pretty much a completely clean track in front of him. The next car in front of him is Adam Zemke, who is about a corner ahead.
A lot of them are coming in now, you see. We mentioned Knight coming in. He's brought Brandon Walter, Robert Bisson Jr., Pat Harvey in. Calgill has completed his service. What's been a rough race for the 31 machine for Wetback Racing Orange tonight. Medina's also come in for his respective service. Bisson Jr. has missed his pit box, though. He overran the front line. That loses him a little bit of time.
That is a very unfortunate situation for Robert Bisson Jr. And coming to the pits right now, Bradley Holly, our race leader, has given up the race lead to James O'Brien, if but momentarily. We're going to see if Holly can have an incident-free pit stop. He's got to crawl all the way down to the end of pit lane after qualifying on pole. He'll get there eventually. Very easy stop, easy into the pit box. He's got a big lead. He doesn't have to push too hard, and he will be out on track momentarily with no issues.
Reagan Jr. overran his pit box of note as well. James O'Brien has indicated he's coming down this time by for the number 9 service. They'll have some of the freshest tires on the racetrack, along with Charles Sumner, who's also stretched it around on his service. Where our driver gets to pit is Ken Allen. Everybody else has already come in for at least one pit stop, as there's O'Brien in for his service. He was running as far back as 7 seconds behind Bradley Holly before the service.
New leader momentarily is Charles Sumner in the Tropicana orange car that we always love. We'll see if he comes in this lap, or he is trying to stretch it out. No, he is coming in this lap.
Charles Sumner indicated that by going to the bottom of the racetrack and has really backed it on down for his entry. Almost a bit too conservative here, do you think?
That's a good question. I don't think Charles Sumner was fighting particularly closely with anyone. I believe he was around 13th or 14th, so maybe he was just Coming in, old tires. You don't want to screw up the race by jumping over the pit lane.
As a result of different strategies, though, you can see it's now a 3-car battle for the lead that goes quickly to Bradley Holly's direction. Also, the drivers now forced on 2 stops from incidents before, and Colton Lane has to let by Mark Kalin with the better run. Kalin on 6-lap pressure tires in the 60.
And James O'Brien, I'm looking at the differences in pit stops between him and Bradley Holly. There was a 5-second difference. So James O'Brien's actually closed the gap to our leader. It was 4.2 seconds when we crossed the line. The gap between Bradley Holly and James O'Brien, 4.8 seconds with Colton Lane sandwiched in the middle.
Mark Kalin, technical issue just now on the racetrack, the 62, after being in that fight for good track position with the strategy, now off the circuit. So, maybe in the way of similar issues with Connor Hall, off the circuit is the number 62. But you mentioned O'Brien, he's now within 5 seconds of your race leader, Bradley Holly. Regan Jr. has closed up an extra couple seconds along with Joshua Daniels to the number 9, with him being on the freshest tires in the field now. As a result here with the strategy by about a lap.
And we saw Richard Regan Jr. bring the gap down to under 10 seconds to Bradley Holly by the end of blasting. Now the gap is only 6.4 seconds, so we will see how much further he can make his way up the field. Joshua Daniels is the first car he has to worry about. He is on 3-lap pressure tires. He gets a good exit here. I think it'll only be a matter of time until we see Richard Regan Jr. back and forth.
Mark Kalin has now reappeared on the racetrack from his technical issue, it apparently seems to be. The 62, though, as a result, has lost a lap of note. He is now with significant damage in 14th position. So Kalin, horrific luck going his direction.
And Richard Regan Jr. was all over the back of Joshua Daniels, but he slowed it down maybe a little bit too much, rode the curb on the inside, and he was not able to make the move. As he is promoted to 4th with Colton Lane. Did Colton Lane come into the pits, or did he have an incident? I am not sure.
I think Lane simply had to let him go because, keep in mind, Lane is running 35-second times when these lane cars go. In clean space are those 34-second times we talked about. Right now, everyone who came in for service running 33 1s and 2s when they have space to themselves.
And James O'Brien is running faster than Bradley Holly. They're pretty much even now, but his first couple laps in the stint were faster. The gap is down to 4.8 seconds, but it's still a very, very large gap. Joshua Daniels still desperately trying to keep Richard Regan Jr. behind. Regan Jr. hasn't been able to make any kind of move into turn 4 here, as again he has to slow down mid-corner, and that just kills all of his momentum.
Remind Daniels, 3-lap older tires, and it can take some time for these tires to equalize to one another for the long run. So Daniels not willing to back down. Here comes Regan Jr., though, able to finally build up the run, and here it comes to the inside for 3rd spot. Regan Jr. with the preferred line, able to make it look easy as Daniels goes up the track.
Daniels didn't put too much of a fight up there. He might not have been able to. But Richard Regan Jr. promoted up to 3rd. He's now at the line, 2.3 seconds behind James O'Brien. We'll see how that gap changes now that Richard Regan Jr. is in clean air.
He did lose about 1+ seconds, though, trying to get around Daniels as a result, though, of how hard the 77 was fighting there. So to reset your top 10, it's Holly, O'Brien, Regan Jr., Daniels, Lane, Bisson Jr., Harvey, Walter, Dinko, and Knight. Your top 10, Bisson Jr. just let go by Lane for 5th position.
Pit hiccup by Robert Bisson Jr. He's back on it, still making his way through the field. He's a couple seconds further back than he would have liked, but he's still in a strong top 5, and there's plenty of racing to go.
He's currently 4 seconds back to the next position. Check that, 5 seconds. Trent Dinkle, meanwhile, was happy to hold off Mike Knight at the moment. Knight a little bit fresher tires. Almost got the run to the inside there.
Had to back off just a little bit to not turn Trent Dinkle. Through turn 3 and 4, a little bit more of an aggressive entry from Mike Knight. Can he get a run again this time? They're about even on exit. And in turn 1 again, we'll see if Knight can recreate what he did last time, but actually make the move this time.
This is the current battle for the last cars in the lead. Lap 2 as Knight strong on the brakes. Remember, Dinkle, that was his strong suit in the late stages of the first run of the race. Haven't seen much of Mike Knight towards the front of the field of recent late. Of note, you see Chad Brown also electing to come down and pit as these cars drive on by.
Chad Brown with that stop. He was 1 lap down. He made it up a lap, but it looks like he will go back to 2 laps down as Mike Knight's fallen back off the back of Dinkle a little bit, but through turn 1, Dinkle goes a little bit high. That actually works for him. The gap closed a little bit, but the gap between these two cars still 2/10 and too big for Mike Knight to do anything with.
Mark Kalin is officially out of the race, so is Chad Brown. For the respective issues, Chad Brown pulling into the garage area, Kalin technical issues. So 15 cars now running on the racetrack. Jose Medina now the last car running in the field. 2 laps down. Go ahead.
Fastest driver on track right now is actually Richard Regan Jr. Or at least he was on the last lap. This lap he was 1/10 slower than Bradley Holly, but before that he was up by a couple hundredths. This could be a pretty close battle if he finds some way to bring down that 7-second gap.
Now for Bradley Holly, since the issues for Hall has just been lights out. And remember, it was an intense battle between him and Hall the last time those cars had been fighting amongst each other back at Rockingham, which led to a couple bits of contact. For tonight, though, much different story. Hawley having a nice, clean run. As a result, has been able to just run his own pace. O'Brien is a little bit quicker, but that cushion built up in that first run is just immense right now compared to the rest of the pack. No one else has been really able to close it on up full.
Not at all, but as we are 84 laps in the race, we have been green the whole way with a slightly diminished field size. There hasn't been as many cars to bring out a caution, but do you think we can go caution-free this whole way?
Maybe one of the first times potentially this season for these competitors. Time was a factor back at Rockingham. Drivers came close to that before. Now it's the matter, though, of can they limit the attrition is the big key. Keep in mind as well that there are several battles for such as the Lucky Dog just taking place right in front. And so Brian Charles Sumner has just moved into that spot in front of Adam Zemke. So first call 1 lap down is now the 98 of Sumner in the Tropicana machine.
And the 2 drivers who Bradley Holly is going to catch next are Trent Dinkle and Mike Knight locked in battle. That's not going to be good for Holly if them 2 are too focused on their battle. And if they're side by side in the corner, that's going to hold up Holly quite a bit.
More so James O'Brien for that Lucky Dog battle as well as this battle here you're referring to. See, Knight's been really trying to build up a run off the corner, just cannot seem to get any proper momentum without losing too much time trying to let it roll.
He's been quite a bit better on entry, it seems, but on exit, just not quite enough to make the move. He had his chance a couple laps ago, couldn't do anything with it, as it looks like he may have to let Bradley Holly by in a few moments. Maybe he'll try and sneak by on the inside if Bradley Holly passes on the bottom, gets Trent Dinkle out of the groove, and Mike Knight can just slip and slide, follow Holly, make that position up.
Would be a smart move as Colton Lane's now in the grass trying to enter the pit lane as well. Colton Lane now in for his 2-stop, just about crashed his car on his entry. Let's take a look. He crossed up right by the yellow line, tried to go in late, and nearly spun it into traffic.
And who was coming up right behind him? It was the battle with Dingle, Knight, and Holly. That could have been disastrous if he wasn't able to catch that back up.
Well, Patrick Cowgill, that was towards his right side as well when he was trying to go to the grass. See if he gets penalized for an unsafe pit entry or not for that specific incident. Let's take the access road here, of course, at Worldwide Technology Raceway. Here on both entry and exit, no penalty. Off and away goes Lane.
Bradley Holly has been able to get by Mike Knight. Mike Knight's fallen back quite a bit, but now Holly is actually stuck behind Dinkley. He got a little bit out of shape out of turn 4, almost hit the outside wall as Mike Knight also gets out of shape there. We're going to see Bradley Holly make the move now, but Knight is way too far back to do anything with it.
If anything, Holly's actually picked up about a second in the past 10 laps to pull off and away. Now 45 laps to go. The halfway mark of the season for the PRL Cup Series.
The battle that is closing, though, is the battle between James O'Brien and Richard Regan Jr. Now below a second, or just above a second. It's about 1.0 exactly, as they are still trying to catch Zemke and Sumner. Haven't quite caught up yet, but Regan is closing up to James O'Brien, and we could see a battle here for second very soon.
I'm curious if this goes right to that situation we talked about where O'Brien may try and defend for valuable points. Keep in mind, O'Brien having a stronger points run so far. Regan Jr. really struggling turn 4 exit. He's had to lift for tightness a couple times. That time got a little bit loose on the rumble strips.
Don't want to get too low into turn 4 because, like you said, the rumble strips, the road course style curves, they will take your car and fling it around, especially on old tires when you don't have any grip. So while it is nice to run as low as possible, you have to make sure not to take too much, or else your race will be over. A little bit better of an exit there from Regan Jr., but the gap is still stagnating at about 1.0 seconds between him and O'Brien.
The interesting driver to keep an eye on, keep in mind, is the only driver now who is still left running on a 2-star. Colton Lane is 1 lap down at the moment. He's the last car 1 lap down, in fact. Again, it wasn't originally by choice with how this has fared out, but he's right now scored in the 13th, check that 12th position. Spin down the front stretch, caution flag is out. Trent Dinkel. And our first caution of the night after a long green flag run of more than 100 laps.
Looking at the replay here, everything looks normal, and then on the exit, just same thing we've seen many, many times. You lose it, you overcorrect, you lose it again, and he didn't hit the wall, he just barely tapped the wall. But when you're parked sideways across the front straight, that's always going to be a caution.
Just under 100 laps, I should rather say. But either way, this changes a lot now and puts a lot of pressure on Bradley Holly after what has been an extremely long run for some of these competitors. And Holly's lead was up to 9 seconds at the stripe before the yellow.
And now his lead is going to be about 0.9 seconds as he leads the field down into the pits. A couple cars will stay out. That's Sumner, Zemke. They're trying to get a wave around. Mike Knight as well. This is going to be a very interesting race here with, 30, 40 laps to go. Richard Regan Jr. on a charge. We're in for a special finish.
The amount of wave arounds are going to be interesting as well. Keep in mind this, that some drivers again, only using their second set of the race available. So there is a lot of flexibility on the strategy now as a result of them trying to go into one stop. The one driver who doesn't have flexibility here, Joseph, and is taking the wave, keep in mind, is Colton Lane. Say there's a quickie caution, he gets to take the tires. Guess what happens if we get a late race caution? The 60 likely stays out.
Yep, he was hoping for a green flag run to the end, I think, but he did not get it. Bradley Holly, a decent stop. Richard Regan Jr., a decent stop. Richard Regan Jr. actually jumped James O'Brien in the pits. I didn't notice that until I saw it on the timing screen. But Richard Regan Jr. is going to be alongside Bradley Holly for this restart.
Up 16 positions now. 39 to go this time. Zemke electing not to take the wave around, neither does Jose Medina, but Charles Sumner, Colton Lane, along with Patrick Calgill and Ken Allen, go and take said wave around. So now how does this change your approach to hauling now, knowing everyone else is now right behind you on this equal set of tires while you may have a quick car? That cushion you had if you made a mistake was gone, is now gone.
Yeah, well, Bradley Holly is probably still the fastest driver on track. He qualified on pole. He's been up front all day. But if he makes one mistake, like you said, he's got a very, very hungry Richard Regan Jr., a very, very hungry James O'Brien, and even Joshua Daniels. He's still in it. So Bradley Holly needs to be perfect here on this restart. And then if we go, 35-something laps to the end, he'll probably make up a pretty big gap again, I'd say.
Absolutely. Drivers approaching what appears to be 37 laps towards the checker flag. Take a quick step aside. You're watching the Global Sim Racing channel for coverage of the PRL Cup Series. Welcome back to the virtual Worldwide Technology Raceway for coverage of the PRL Cup Series, where Bradley Holly and Richard Regan Jr. are the front after what was a 95-lap green flag run for our first caution of the night after Trent Dinkle spun around on the front straightaway. That changed a lot for this race. As here we go, Bradley Holly off and away, green flags back out.
Good jump from Holly. Not so much so by Richard Regan Jr., but Regan just needs to stick with him as he's very, very hard into the corner there.
Really hard on the brakes, Holly nearly smacks it towards the wall. O'Brien shuffled for the fourth, Daniels up to third once more now as a result of the launches near contact. Regan Jr. forced to check up on the brakes.
Indeed, that killed his momentum, but he's still, he lost a little bit in the exit there. Joshua Daniels is still there in third as well. But can Richard Regan Jr. make the move? He's finally made his way up front, touching distance of the leader. But it's a whole nother ballgame actually making the pass.
It's been an adventure for Regan Jr. to cut his way to the field at the start of the back after causing a caution flag at Legacy Texas Motor Speedway. Now, looking to try and go from the back of the field to the point for the first time tonight. Separates still by 3 make it nearly 0.4 of a second with 35 laps to go.
I don't want to say he's missed his opportunity because there's still lots of racing to go, but he needed to pounce on that restart, and he didn't quite have the restart he wanted. We're just going to have to sit here for a couple laps, see Bradley Holly pull away a little bit, and then just hope that they run into lap traffic before the end of this race, and it'll hold up Holly.
Top 7, by the way, just set their fastest laps of the race. Holly, though, had the fastest overall at 32.5, 1/10 quicker than anybody else in the field. That time, another half a tenth picked up on Reagan Jr. Plus. Daniels already has lost more than a second to the race leader. He saw Junior, Harvey, and Walter, all those other drivers who were in that time loop outside of O'Brien.
Regan Jr. almost ended up in the wall on the exit of turn 2 there, as Holly went a little bit wide into turn 1, as James O'Brien is now all over the back of Daniels. He was in second when this caution came out. He's down to 4th, but he will attempt to make it up to 3rd right here into turn 1. Is the bottom gonna work here? It doesn't always. It might. He's better than Daniels here. They're still side by side though.
Ryan has the preferred line for 3 and 4, though, and again, near contact to the door of the 77. Tries to get the late arc. Daniels, though, not giving up easily once more this time. Still keeps it to the quarter panel, but O'Brien able to slip on by.
And now O'Brien has his sights set on Richard Regan Jr. Gap between Regan and Holly now a full second, unfortunately. And James O'Brien is actually catching Regan faster than Regan's catching Holly.
Absolutely at this point. What a race it's been for Holly once again, who's led just about every single lap so far tonight. O'Brien, though, now trying to catch up to his teammate right now, separate by 0.8 of a second. That time by picked up another 10th.
Looking at the gap to the back of the cars on the lead lap. Last car on the lead lap is Ken Ayland in 12th place. He's 13 seconds behind Bradley Holly, and they are about a full second difference in terms of pace. Almost 2 seconds, actually. So Bradley Holly is definitely going to catch lap traffic before the end of this race again.
Those are the drivers hoping for a wave around, or the wave around rather, to work out for them. Colton Lane is in that group, several others. Take a look at Bisson Jr. He's now trying to attack Daniels. His teammate Pat Harvey right on by. Let's take a look on board with Bisson Jr.
Daniels was 3rd, but he's not been able to keep with James O'Brien. Now he's got the hard-charging Robert Bisson Jr. from 19th on the grid. All over the back of Daniels. Daniels hard on the throttle, almost a little bit sideways there. Bisson does have the pace, but he just needs to find a way by here.
On the back end, as you see that separation, 0.4 of a second as well as the mile an hour. Bisson Jr. quicker just about the majority of the corner, all the way to the corner exit.
He's fallen back a little bit here.
And just able to stretch it out down the back straightaway, Daniels was.
That, like I mentioned before with a couple other battles, it's frustrating when you know you're faster than someone, but you're faster in all the wrong places. You just need to hope for a mistake to get by.
Sun Jr. trying to dive in the corner in this, though. And eventually you'd have to think that some of the speed in the corners could fry some of these drivers' tires here. Keep in mind that they only have one set, a majority of these drivers in the pits left.
Indeed, I think a lot of them are hoping that we get a late caution. They can take some tires. Maybe some drivers stay out for strategy, don't take tires. But right now, everyone is full push. And if you need to destroy your tires to pass someone, I think that's what these drivers are going to do. As Bisson tries to do a little bit of a switchback on Daniels. It's better of an exit than he got last time, but still nowhere near close enough.
Mind that there is damage on some of these drivers as well, scraping the walls, such as Bisson Jr. on his right front tire here. how much does damage impact the cars you feel for Worldwide Technology Raceway?
Well, some of it is psychological. If you see that your car is damaged, you might be thinking the whole time, is my car driving different? Is my car driving weird? Am I slow because of the damage? And sometimes that actually slows you down more than the damage itself. But damage is always an inhibitor of speed, even at a track like this, where it is a short track, it is a driver's track, not so much just a straight line speed track. But Beastsaw is definitely a little bit slower than he was with a nice fresh car.
Definitely an impact for the aero, and keep in mind, want to take a listen in for Beastsaw Jr. real quick next time by in 1 and 2, because shifting is also a possibility here at this racetrack. Take a listen in. Taking in 4th gear here, but it's 1 and 2 where Beastsaw Jr. has been messing around with the gearing.
Especially on older tires, shifting does definitely help, but you do have to be careful. We saw earlier in the race, Michael Witt blew up his gearbox, missing a shift or shifting down by accident. Joshua Daniels again goes very deep into the corner, but still holding back Richard Beastsaw Jr.
See these revs trying to keep them nice and calm, bumper to bumper.
Up front, up to 1.8 seconds. Richard Regan Jr. not able to keep up with Bradley Holly unless he's saving his tires for a late charge at the end of this race. We still have 23 more laps to go. It's a pretty long way.
That interval has continued to grow up at the very top of the field. James O'Brien is also losing a little bit of time as well. Keep in mind, to Regan Jr. now. Daniels right now is running the same ballpark as O'Brien time-wise of note. For James O'Brien, though, it's been an impressive first half of the season, though. We've seen him be competitive in the past in this series. He's been able to win races, and normally it was at the luck heading towards his way with his teammate Richard Regan Jr. having some bad luck. But this season it's been an outright performance where he's been beating his teammate week in, week out normally.
It's always good to have an experienced and a proven, strong teammate to help you out. James O'Brien in his own right, great driver, doing a great job here in 3rd place. He's still hoping that something besets the 2 leaders and he can pick up the pieces and win this race somehow. But I would say he's probably pretty happy with good points staying 3rd at the moment.
Regan Jr. has started to push on forward, though, Joseph, because he's now closed up 2 tenths. So you were just mentioning the potential of saving for the 46. He is coming, and coming up fairly quickly now to Holly.
And only a few seconds ahead of Bradley Holly is the lapped cars. That's going to start with Ken Ayland. Bradley Holly with a hard charging Richard Regan Jr. behind and a slow charging lapped car in front. That could be a recipe for the end of Bradley Holly's victory, but we'll see if he can still hang on here.
Take a look at the revs. You can see just waiting for the right mark to get back on the gas. It's been a difference for some of these drivers where some have done that shifting in 1 and 2 we talked about, while others like to keep it in 4th gear. Take a look at the gears for Regan Jr. here. He's keeping it in 4th gear, letting it roll a little bit more on the apex.
Difference in lap time between the 2 leaders last time was just over a 1/10 of a second. If Richard Regan can keep doing that for the entirety of this race, he will catch Bradley Holly before the end. But through turns 3 and 4 this time, Holly doesn't quite, or rather Regan doesn't quite have the advantage he's had, and he was actually slower than Holly that time.
It seems like Regan Jr. is better in 1 and 2, but Holly's better in 3 and 4 right now almost.
Definitely seems like that the gap is stagnated at about 1.4 seconds as we saw Regan wiggle a little bit out of turns 3 and 4. That's not going to help him. But actually, it hasn't changed the time much. It's still exactly 1.400. on the time screens right now.
Regan Jr. that time evening out the time. He's been picking up some time. Keep in mind on the brakes, we've seen how tight he was nearly hitting the back of the Holly before. He's utilizing that speed too, we'll see. Gained an hour 10th into braking that time.
He's brought it down to 1.3 seconds. If you're watching at home, your eyes are glued to the ticker right now. It's 1.3, it's 1.4. Will it ever go down to 1.2? Well, guess what? It just has. Richard Regan Jr. brings it down another 1/10 of a second. And that's the first time the gap is not 1.4 seconds at the line.
The saying goes, though, it's easy to catch somebody, Joseph. It's harder to pass them. How does Regan Jr. try and pass him if he can get there is the big question.
Well, I would say the possibilities are move him out of the way, or move him out of the way. I think that's going to be his only option. I think he will struggle very, very, very much to pass Bradley Holly any other way.
You think there's going to be the contact then if he gets there? He lost some time, keep in mind, this past lap.
And Holly is mere moments away from catching that first lapped car. Richard Regan Jr. is just sitting back and watching the lapped car show ahead, hoping that Bradley Holly will run into him at the worst possible time. It looks like Holly might be able to catch him into turn 1, but we'll see.
Regan Jr. nearly clapped the wall coming off of turn 4, as that again is Alan, who will be the first driver who would lose a lap. But I can of him. Might will be more so maybe 3 and 4. You can see how ill handling that car has been getting. 12th position.
Bradley Holly not quite close enough into the corner. Oh, no, he is close enough into the corner to send a little bit of a dive bomb to the bottom. Alan not holding him up too much, being nice on the outside, and Holly's through pretty much without issue. Now Regan has to get through the same car. But I tell you what, the gap is down to 1.0.
About 3/10 picked up for Regan Jr. with the traffic, but here's the counter mark. Jr. has to catch the traffic in a near similar spot. Can he minimize the time loss? Trying to dive in underneath here. Allen gives him some space. Regan Jr., though, quickly gets on by. Not as much held up there with the traffic.
That's always the problem with lap traffic. You're super happy when the leader catches them, and then you realize, wait, I have to pass too.
Pat Harvey from 6th position. He was in the midst of a position battle, believe, and now this changes everything. A caution to set up a restart with under 10 laps to go.
I don't know if we're going to look at a replay here. Here we are. We're going to a replay. I saw that it was a little bit of contact with B-Saw into turns 3 and 4. He sends it in there just a little bit too hot, and then boop, hits B-Saw and spins into the wall. That is very unfortunate.
Take a look from above here. As you mentioned, way too hot. He was not going to stick that even if there wasn't a car there.
Yeah, it's been a quiet day for Pat Harvey so far. I don't think he'll be too happy to be the center of attention right now, as we're seeing the leaders come to pit road here. Holly and Regan almost bumping as they come to the pit entrance.
It's going to be the money stop. Pat Harvey, Charles Sumner, though, elected not to come down that time. We'll see if they elect to come down the second time. But Regan Jr.'s already out of the box. And Regan Jr. drag race with Holly. First driver off is Holly by just an edge of the bumper.
There is a drag strip here at the Gateway Complex. We might want to send Holly and Regan down there, but they had a heck of a drag race here in the pit lane.
You can see the service being picked up here. Drivers trying to get into their stalls. This is where it gets tight, though. Regan Jr. has one of the early pit boxes. It is a difference of about maybe a 1/10 of a car length. between those drivers to decide who comes out as the control car.
Harvey and Sumner have come to the pits. Harvey obviously has some damage from backing it into the wall, and Sumner doesn't think he'll be able to hold off the hard chargers on old tires. So we're in for another dogfight here between the two fastest drivers all day, but Regan needs to make sure he gets a better restart this time than he did last time.
Now it goes to Ken Allen by the way. Patrick Cowgill was able to keep his lap. Colton Lane now has a shot to get a decent run here once more as a result of this caution flag, but he is down to his final set. Everybody else, if needed, has an additional set, but likely won't see anyone come down from this point on.
No, with only 10 laps to go, it's not quite a green-white checker, but it is a very, very late race restart. There's not going to be any long run here. It's not going to be any tire saving. It's going to be 4,000% push, and we need a lot of aggression if you're going to make any passes.
Let me phrase this question this way then. You thought there was the potential contact on the long run for the chance if Regan Jr. got there. Now, and how do you get the job done cleanly if you have that opportunity?
I don't know these guys well enough to know if contact is a possibility, but with a short run here, all Regan needs to do is hope for one mistake from Holly and send it to the bottom or send it to the outside. He just needs to push him hard enough to make that mistake happen and capitalize on it.
See if he's going to be able to push him along. 1 to go signal. This time 8 laps to decide it from Worldwide Technology Raceway. It's Holly, Regan Jr. in row 1. Row 2, O'Brien and Daniels. Row 3, Walter and Bisson Jr. Row 4, Knight and Lane. Row 5 features Cowgill and Sumner. Overall, 14 drivers on the lead lap. Trent Dinkle, Adam Zemke were the wave around cars. 12 on fresh tires. Only one driver, 1 lap down on Jose Medina. Everybody else is off the circuit.
Last time when Regan started on the outside, he did not get a good start at all. He needs to anticipate the start better this time. Stay alongside Bradley Holly into turn 1 if you can. And that is how he will win the race, if he can.
That's how Connor Hall, in part, was able to get the lead early on in this race before technical problems. Off and away goes Holly in first gear, and a bottle-up effect on the top line. Regan Jr. caught sleeping. O'Brien quickly to second.
Regan Jr. almost jumped the start, and he had to back out of it to not beat Holly to the line as James O'Brien goes to the high side, but he falls back, and Bradley Holly again just pulling away here.
Side by side for second. O'Brien gives Regan Jr. the space. Coming up to 7 to go. Daniels also fighting with Bisson Jr. as there's a bit of a wiggle for the 46.
Remember on the last stint, Holly didn't have too much in terms of short run speed. He had a lot in long run speed. With only 7 laps to go, there is no chance of a long run. And Regan Jr. needs to find something to close this gap. It's 0.7 of a second now. It's going to be very difficult for him to win this race now.
6 laps to go. And it looks like almost the car's starting to bottom out a little bit too on Regan Jr. as this run continues. Colton Lane has also jumped up to 5th already. Battling with Joshua Daniels side by side.
Daniels will have the high line here, though. Oh, he hits him! That's another caution!
And there it is. And contact for Mike Knight as well. Under yellow. And now, this sets up a potential green-white checkered.
Look at the replay here. That was just Daniels on the outside here. I said he was going to have the preferred line into turn 1. I'm not sure if he turned down on Lane or Lane came up into him, or a mixture of both.
Almost looked like that mixture, yes. Almost looked like Lane bottomed out as Daniels tried to arc it.
And now, it's going to hopefully, for Richard Regan Jr., be 3rd time's the charm. He has not had a good restart at all these last 2 times, but he's been given one final chance. Could this be the one where he finally gets it right?
After seeing again. Not expecting drivers to dunk in here, and as we see, majority of the lead cars not coming down except for some of the wave arounds. The drivers who have a chance for fresher tires are Zemke and Dinkel. Result of this caution flag. Bradley Hawley, by the way, setting the fastest lap of the race prior to the caution flag, a 32.40, just a couple tenths of a second off his qualifying lap.
And also, just a couple tenths faster than the fastest lap of the race for anyone else. The second fastest lap, Richard Regan Jr., only a 32.5, almost 2 tenths of a second slower than Bradley Hawley. Looking on pit lane, the only car coming down is Adam Zemke. It will drop him down to 14th place, but some fresh tires, maybe 7, 6, 8 laps fresher. It could work out for him.
But he's going to have to pass a lot of cars, 13 of them. I don't know if you can do that in 2 laps.
Oh, he's definitely not going to win unless something disastrous happens up front, but he could pull out a top 10 here, maybe a top 9, top 8 with those fresh tires.
And with some of these drivers, keep in mind some of them are looking for recovery drives like Pat Harvey from that earlier caution flag. Remember, had top 5 pace potentially before his incident. But that damage really slowing him down as a result there, especially with the back end with that spoiler. How tricky is this now going to be if you're Bradley Hawley now, as control of the field is heading towards its way, only 2 laps to hold on as we are reaching 3 to go this time?
Well, we've seen on the last 2 times we've restarted, Regan Jr. has not done very well. Last time he almost jumped the start, he misanticipated Bradley Hawley's jump and he had to get in the brakes, and then Hawley streaked away, and the time before that he was just straight up too slow. So I don't know what Richard Regan Jr. is going to do here. He's going to have to nail this, but he hasn't shown that he can do that so far tonight.
What about O'Brien or Bisson Jr.? Because those drivers have also been quick on the short run.
Last restart, I saw James O'Brien as he was on the bottom. He was second momentarily. He almost got to the bottom of Bradley Hawley, but he wasn't able to do anything with it with his teammate Regan Jr. on the outside. So if the top side does bog down a lot this time, that could be good for James O'Brien to maybe sneak through for the victory. But I think this is Bradley Hawley's race to lose, and it's going to take a phenomenal restart from anyone else to win here.
Keep in mind that time limit could be a factor if we have any more caution flags from this point forward. We are approaching that 10-minute mark or so, give or take, on the clock. We might check or expect to be triggered this time by for these competitors. To reset your field, it's Hawley, Regan Jr., O'Brien, Bisson Jr., Lane and Walter, Knight and Cowgill, Sumner and Harvey, Dinkel and Allen, Daniels and Zemke. Medina on the lead lap in only 1 green-white checkered attempt. This is to decide the race.
You know, I got to give Jose Medina credit. He has been struggling today, and he has been a lap down for pretty much the majority of the race. But, you know, he's toughed it out. He's been here with us for 130-something laps, and he'll get a top 15 out of it.
Come away with the victory. Mention Hawley having that strong day. See if he can hold on for only a few more miles, 2.5 to be precise. O'Brien warming up his tires. First gear already being activated for Hawley and Regan Jr. iRacing pace car is off. Green flags back out. Hawley off and away. Regan Jr. quickly cuts down. And that is right across James O'Brien, his teammate, to get to the bottom.
A decent start this time from Regan as Hawley makes a mistake. Regan Regan is chasing that bottom line. He's going to have to send it very deep into turn 4 here. Holly's going to block him. Can the outside work here? I'm not sure, as he's going to be very late in the brakes.
Sending it deep. Remember, it's worked before. Near contact. Holly tries to hug the bottom. Regan Jr. gets a bit of a bobble. Race is official. White flag is out. Final lap from Worldwide Technology Raceway.
Can Bradley Holly repay the favor now? Richard Regan Jr. has not led a lap all race, so it is an unfamiliar sight for him, seeing a track with no one in front of him. James O'Brien almost gets to the bottom of Bradley Holly there, but with 1 corner to go, I think Regan's got it.
Holly tries to send it in, can't get there. Richard Regan Jr. on the final restart of the race takes home the victory at Worldwide Technology Raceway.
And third time was a charm. It took him 3 restarts to get there, but from 18th on the grid, Richard Regan Jr. wins. That is phenomenal for him, but that is absolutely heartbreaking for Bradley Holly, who parks it halfway through turn 1 after the checkered flag.
100% agree with you on that one, as his teammates help him celebrate with the fireworks going off. The difference, just under 0.3 of a second between Regan Jr. and Holly at the stripe. Regan Jr. ready to burn it on down as post-race coverage coming up in just a few moments. Private label, team hype, celebrates. Regan Jr. unofficially first victory of the season. Take a step aside. Post-race coverage coming up after this. Welcome back to the virtual Worldwide Technology Raceway in the shadows of the Gateway Arch, where the PRL Cup Series capped off its first half of 2021 Season 1 with a thrilling finish. On a green-white checkered finish, it's Richard Regan Jr. who leads just 2 laps all day. From the back of the field to the front of the field unofficially is your winner by 0.2 of a second over Bradley Holly. James O'Brien comes home in third. Speaking of those drivers in just a few moments, Robert Bisson Jr. finished in 4th today after also having to start from the back due to incidents at Texas Motor Speedway, with Colton Lane in 5th. Brandon Walter, Charles Sumner, Mike Knight, Pat Harvey, Patrick Cowgill, with a quiet top 10 run, rounds out said top 10.
And then down in 11th, Adam Zemke, after taking tires on that last restart, made up a couple positions, followed by Joshua Daniels in the top 3 all day. Disappointing for him to finish in 12th. Then Ken Ayland in 13th, and Trent Dinkle had a bit of an incident on the last lap to finish 14th. Then Jose Medina stuck around all night. Good for him. Finished 15th. And then the used car lot, the cars that did not finish the race, Chad Brown, Mark Kalin, the exploded Michael Witt, Connor Hall, and Baron Hilton finished 20th. And then Abner Costa in 21st didn't show up.
Not able to hit the grid for tonight, unfortunate for him. But for tonight, it's Richard Regan Jr. with just 2 laps led, unofficially with the victory tonight. Richard Regan Jr. now joins us in the broadcast booth. Richard, first things first, how are you feeling after tonight? Finally able to break through into victory lane in a close one at GWC to decide it.
Well, I won at Watkins Glen, so.
Oh yes, almost forgot. Yes. Either way,
it feels good because Brad had the car beat tonight, I think, and I knew what I had to do on the restart.
Overall, what was it like trying to have to charge from the back to the front?
It was difficult because this track is really bad with dirty air and passing, just because it's basically a one-groove track anyway. And once you get into that dirty air, it just puts a lot of weight on the nose, so there's not much you can do other than be patient and keep making them, hoping they make mistakes. And just took my time getting through the field, had a long green flag run, got up to third before that first caution. And then that second to last restart, Brad caught me sleeping. I think he accelerated a little bit and then checked up maybe a tad bit, and I thought he was going to go, but he had to do what he had to do. But I was expecting that on that last restart, and I knew if I got that run in 1 and 2 that it was going to be it.
Indeed, and now with this victory tonight, gained some momentum back for the second half of the campaign. What's your approach going to be like for the second half of the season, especially with one of the underlying news storylines for the night, that a schedule change for the closing rounds being Daytona's road course and Homestead to close things out for the second half?
Well, I like Homestead, but it's tough. We do have help from Reaper Speed Lab, giving us some good baselines. But it's just me, James, and Brandon turning laps all week, tuning on the set, trying to get to where we need it to be. And we got some good competition in the league. So it's just been a learning process, and we're going to keep learning and keep bringing the momentum. And hopefully we'll figure something out here soon so we can be dominant.
Anyone you want to thank for the run tonight?
Yeah, I got to thank my boy Tommy Milner, who won at Daytona today in real life. Ty Stover, James O'Brien, Brandon Walter, Private Label, Ethica, Neonism, Multiple Sclerosis Society, Susan G. Coleman, you guys at GSRC, everyone that tunes in. My boys Connor Harrington and Josh Chin over on the roadside. We did the Daytona 24 this past weekend and had a good result there. So just a good weekend.
Congratulations on the run tonight.
Thanks, guys.
Richard Regan Jr., your winner tonight, just 2 laps led. 127 of them went to Brownlee Hawley. He's with Joseph Debin.
Well, what can I say? You were dominant tonight, but those last 2 laps, that final restart, I can't imagine you're too happy losing the race after dominating it so much.
No, not exactly. I had, a second lead before the first caution came out, and then second caution comes out, I had, a 2-second lead. So, yeah, not too happy about how it went, but, P2 is a P2.
It seemed that throughout the race you were the dominant truck. We saw you building gaps of 9 seconds, 7 seconds to the cars behind. What do you think gave you an advantage all day today?
Early on I was saving tires. I guess you could say the first run, I kind of used Connor's blinking as a way to help save my tires and was able to build that gap as the race went on.
I guess that is a unique thing with iRacing. In real life, you don't see cars disappearing. How was that those first couple laps, not knowing where the truck you were fighting was?
Very, very distracting. It's always tough when you have to guess where a car is and hope you don't get net code or anything like that contact. So it was stressful at the beginning, and then when he finally let me by, I was kind of able to figure out what I need to do and go from there.
Indeed. Well, it was a solid run tonight, even if it didn't quite end up in the lead. Do you have anyone you want to thank for your solid performance tonight?
Yeah, I'd like to thank our team sponsor for Jim's Body Shop for sponsoring us to give us good setups. North Star Title, you guys for broadcasting us week in and week out, and the Waterback guys.
All right, that was your second place finisher, Bradley Holly. I'd just like to clarify that he was driving a car, not a truck. And the third place car finisher belongs to Justin Prince right now.
James O'Brien is that driver who drove into third spot. 2 laps led as well tonight. James, how are you feeling about your run tonight?
Oh man, it was great. It made it even better because Richard won the thing. I kind of knew where I sat at the beginning, and with Richard not being able to qualify, it was just a matter of time until he was able to work his way up there. But with Daytona 24 and our result there, and with this kind of finish here, it's like what Richard said, it's just been a great weekend.
I know you had a bit of a one-day rest period from that compared to your time split 8:30 p.m. What was it like trying to balance the preparation for this race and the preparation for the Daytona 24?
I probably should have put a little bit more into the road side this week versus this track, but I wanted to build a pretty good set every week. Since I seem to have the most time on my hands out of the three of us, I'd kind of relay info to the other two and ask them what they think about this or that. So I usually turn the most laps trying to just help, and then hope that when we get a set at the end for all three of them, and then they can kind of put their input in a little bit better and we can work and get something good. But yeah, this week has been a challenge having to balance both of that, especially with our road side of the team on Team Hype, and trying not to let those guys down and having to make a solid performance there. So I'm just happy everything went well, and this came out better than I thought. I was really nervous about how fast we were going to be here this weekend.
Now, what's your approach going to be like for the second half of the season for PRL Cup Series?
Same thing as I've been doing. I'm now, I believe, the only driver left in the league that has finished top 5 every race. I know I haven't won one yet, but I'll keep clicking those off and have a solid points result every week, keep the team in first place like we've been doing too, and just trying to stay consistent and keep the nose clean every race. Next week's going to be tough. Wilkesboro, I believe. It's a fun track, but man, I'm ready to get into the real season and done with these novelty tracks. It's just going to be a lot easier to build sets for when you have more brain power from everybody helping, once we hit Daytona.
Going to be interesting indeed once Daytona comes up for grabs. Who do you want to thank for your run tonight, though?
Richard and Brandon for just being great teammates. Tommy for chiming in and helping as much as he can, even though he's just a road driver. He really loves this oval stuff and watching it. Ty for running the show and being awesome, and Ethica for being on board with Private Label. Their stuff is so cool. I just keep buying it. And Moto Million, I believe they're still on my car. It's been a long weekend, man. I'm tired. You sound tired too. And you guys for putting it on, obviously hanging in there with us every week.
Congratulations on the run tonight.
Thanks, Justin.
James O'Brien coming home in third. I'd like to thank him, Bradley Hawley, Richard Regan Jr. for taking the time to speak with us here for post-race coverage. Your thoughts on this one, Joseph, and what was an entertaining one to say the least?
It took a while to heat up, but at the end there, 3 restarts and a surprise winner. It certainly got exciting at the end there. Richard Regan Jr. last to first. You don't see that often. A very, very high quality event from Gateway tonight. Who says you can't pass a Gateway?
Indeed. What a run indeed for this one, but thank everyone for tuning in for tonight's exciting action once again from the virtual Worldwide Technology Raceway. I'd also like to thank Charles Sumner and the rest of the Precision Racing League for organizing this strong series. I'd also like to thank the title sponsors SimMSA, ButtKicker, and NinjaTrader for all the work they do for this respective series to help it get to where it is now and to higher marks in the future. I'd also like to thank the companies who provide the software and hardware for a broadcast listed up on screen. With additional thanks to Jude Luana, who provides her wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of her great work. Thanks to the team today as well, and Joseph and Sean. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. If you'd like to help support the channel, you can check the merchandise for sale at gsrc.stormvy.com, or you can check out our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. Don't forget to head over to our YouTube page and hit that big red subscribe button, as well as the notification bell, so you don't miss a moment here on the Global Sim Racing Channel. The next race for the PRL Cup Series heads its way once again towards some of the difficult tracks to build for. North Wilkesboro is that next track. Green flag set for qualifying for 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Coverage starts approximately 8:20 p.m. Eastern. Once again, that is on January 31st. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on screen, so be sure to check those out and mark them down in your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.